Welcome to SB&M is Here, the State Bar of New Mexico's official podcast. In this series, we'll discuss topics such as professional development, tools of the legal trade, and mental and professional well-being. Connecting the legal community across New Mexico, SB&M is here.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. This is Morgan Pettit, Member Services Manager for the State Bar of New Mexico. So for me, this episode is incredibly special because it feels like a full circle moment. In the summer that was 2020, the bar released its first podcast episode, and we featured our Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. I was so thrilled to have JLAP as the first guest of the podcast, and now I'm happy to have them back at the start of our 2021 season. Pam and Tanessa, it's good to see you since we're recording virtually, and it's good to hear from you as well.
Hello, Morgan.
Hello, Morgan. It's great to be back.
So before we hear from our two speakers, I'm going to have Pam fill us in on the new committee that the bar has formed that I think will be of interest to you all. And then Tanessa has a really exciting announcement on behalf of this committee, on behalf of the bar. So I'm going to let them fill you in now.
So this is Pam, Director of the New Mexico Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. And we did create a new well-being committee at the end of 2019, but it really it got into full gear in 2020. And we had created that well-being committee to look at bringing more efforts and initiatives to the New Mexico legal community in the areas of well-being. So more education, more activities, more events, more presentations, and doing it at a bunch of different avenues, I guess I would say. And so that has really taken off. Probably about July, August of last year, we had to quickly switch gears from what we had originally planned on doing because of COVID. And so we could bring efforts to the New Mexico legal community right away. So when I talk about the New Mexico legal community and the group of people that the Wellbeing Committee is focused on, that includes judges, lawyers, law students, and staff. Court staff, law firm staff, everybody in the New Mexico legal community. So we recognized that there was a greater need for well-being, and that very much showed up in 2020, as you all know. But there's a greater need for more well-being efforts and education in our legal community. And we went about creating this committee based on the COLAP Wellbeing Task Force. So we followed their model in terms of creating this well-being committee. And we will continue to grow our efforts and our outreach for this well-being committee in 2021.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that really 2020 has shown us, or did show us, since we're now in 2021, that there is no such thing as too much emphasis on well-being, mental health, professional well-being, and personal well-being. So I think it's a wonderful committee that we've started. And then Tanessa, you have exciting news, and I'm excited personally. How many times can I say excited? Morgan. I know, excited. But tell us about what's coming up from you guys.
With pleasure. So hello, everyone. I'm Tanessa Akins. I am the clinical coordinator of NMJLAP. And one of the things I wanted to share today was with the creation of the New Mexico Wellbeing Committee, there has been quite a few exciting developments. One of them is a particular campaign that's called What a Healthy Lawyer Looks Like. And this is going to feature a podcast that's actually going to be the Wellbeing Committee's podcast. So keep your eye out for the Wellbeing Committee's podcast. It's coming out in late February of this year.
And I think that's really cool. I've done some preliminary research on legal organization podcasts, and there's not too many out there that have more than one podcast for their organization. There's various ones, like the State Bar of Texas has one. The ABA has an entire channel. If you guys haven't listened to that, they have like 32 separate podcasts, but I don't think there's a state bar out there that's going to that has two podcasts like we do. So New Mexico State Bar members, we're kind of leading the front on this. So I think it's pretty exciting. But with that, Pam, we've kind of got some cool speakers today. Do you want to fill us in who they are, and then they can take it away?
I will. Thank you, Morgan. So I want to, before I talk about who's on the podcast today, I want to let you know that our topic for the month of January was exercise. And it is showing up as we emphasized exercise with our judicial wellness program, which is called J-Well Now. We've been putting out articles and information on not just exercise, but exercise and movement. So exercise and movement can show up in a bunch of different ways, and everybody's got their favorite. And so we're really trying to emphasize just moving in some way. And so our speakers today, two speakers, Dr. Anthony Fleg is from the UNM Department of Family and Community Medicine. And he's also with the College of Population Health. He was the co-founder and is very much a part of Running Medicine, which is a program from the New Mexico, or from the Native Health Initiative. And then we have our very own Norm Gagne. He is of counsel to Butt, Thornton, and Baehr. He recently completed 2 terms on the New Mexico Judicial Standards Commission. And he is a member of our Judicial Wellness Subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the Wellbeing Committee that I talked about earlier. And so Norm is a big outdoor enthusiast and wrote a phenomenal article that was in our J-Well Now e-blast the beginning of January, and is also featured in our Bar Bulletin this month in January. And so our 2 speakers today, or podcast discussion members, are Dr. Anthony Fleg and Norm Gagne.
Well, thank you, Morgan, Pam, and Vanessa, for that very nice introduction, and good morning. Has your work been getting you down lately? Has your life lost some of its zest? In this time of COVID-19, are you missing your friends, your work colleagues? Maybe you haven't been able to see your family lately. Are you feeling isolated, lonely, stressed? Are the winter blahs tougher this year than ever? Our work as lawyers and judges and law students is hard enough and stressful enough in normal times. And we have some law students that are going to be listening to us too. So this pandemic has just made things a lot tougher. These are not normal times at all. Well, there are no complete fixes for all this, but we're going to be talking today about a simple, effective, and available way to begin to put more life back into your life, to give you a powerful set of tools to begin to make things better. These tools will serve you well long after the pandemic has subsided and life has returned to some semblance of normal. I'm Norm Gagne. I'm a member of the New Mexico State Bar Wellness Committee and of counsel to Butt, Thornton, and Baehr, and I'm in conversation today with Dr. Anthony Fleg. Dr. Fleg is on the Family and Community Health faculty of the University of New Mexico Medical School and sees patients in the UNMH Rio Rancho Family Practice Clinic. His emphasis in his regular practice is on building and restoring health through strength. He's an avid runner and founder of the organization Running Medicine, of which we will talk more later. He has written and spoken about and is a forceful advocate for getting outside and moving to improve and maintain your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. We'll talk today about how these simple things can quickly begin to improve your work and your life. Good morning and welcome, Dr. Anthony Fleg.
Good morning, Norm, and good morning to everyone listening. It's great to be here. Wish that we were on a run together, all of you listening, and Norm and myself, but we're gonna have some fun and as Norm said, really try to find that those kind of simple, accessible ways to make life and work and the pandemic more fulfilling for all of us.
Great, and we've got lots of stuff to talk about. And I think our time will end up being less time than we could really use up. But before we chat about how our listeners can put these simple tools to work in their lives, can you tell us what's the importance in your life of getting outside and moving?
It's a great thing to start with, Norman, and I know you and I share some similar feelings here of how movement really is medicine for us. I can absolutely, as a former med student, you know, I think probably better than most people identify with the stresses of being a law student and being a law graduate and a lawyer and attorney and the stresses that come with both of our professions. So I think early on in my training, I realized that this was not the time to put down things that keep me well, and it instead was time to keep doing them, to keep making sure that I regardless of what my professional training and professional life was handing me at that moment, I needed to really make time for something and you know, multiple things, but things that keep me well. And so movement, I think, is really just a beautiful way to kind of recenter and let go of things that maybe aren't serving you to be the best lawyer, best judge in that moment, are clouding, in my case, my ability to show empathy with my patients and to really be there present. And so it is on a daily basis. This morning I got out in the 25-degree weather with a neighbor and you know, enjoyed about an hour of medicine, as I call it, on the trails of the North Valley. Mental, spiritual, cultural, social, you know, all the angles that our movement can play. And I will just say at the beginning, even though I'm going to maybe reference running, if your movement is yoga, if your movement is walking, if your movement is walking on a treadmill in a gym versus walking in the Bosque or walking in the foothills, it's movement, and that energizes ourself and resets ourself in a way that it doesn't matter what movement. It's about making that commitment to your own self-care, to get moving, and to see that really as an important part of your professional life that keeps you you know, excited about the work you do, keeps you from bringing home undue amount of stress to your family and your significant other. But it does not have to be running or walking.
You said you decided in medical school not to put down the things that have kept you well. You were a runner before medical school.
Yeah, I was a collegiate runner, and very much kind of at that time, it was kind of running for the sake of fast times and race awards. And I got to med school. I realized that probably, and I think probably all of our lawyers and judges and law students can identify with this, I realized probably the worst thing for my wellness was going to be hanging around med students for the entirety of my life. So law students, think about that. You know, we as really high achieving people, law students, med students, are just you know, not necessarily the healthiest group to just sit in a bubble for years at a time. So interestingly, I did med school in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I found this undergrad group of runners. And so at 4:55, I'd change from dissecting clothes and smelling like formaldehyde. I'd run across campus and I'd meet these undergrads who could care less what my stresses as a med student were. They just wanted someone who brought some energy and some running expertise. And so, yeah, I couldn't like commiserate. It wasn't the place for that. It was the place for me just to run and coach. And they were a huge part of my sanity for the 4 years of med school.
And we're going to talk in a little while here about, well, maybe this is a good time to do it. You had it early on in your life. I had it early in my life and then got away from it and got back to it. But we've movement, that is, and getting out and being physically active. But I think we probably got some of our audience that are listening to us that's not been part of their tradition. That's not been part of how they've lived their lives. And let's just go to that right now. What would you say to folks who have never been active about getting active now? How to do it? What the benefits are?
With my patients, my first, because that's a very common, which you just proposed, it's a very common kind of place to start with. It's kind of a really simple question of what do you think would be fun? And of the list of things that come to mind, roller skating, snowboarding, hang gliding, some dream kind of things. What do you think would be fun? And then is that, of that list, are there some things, number two, that are most accessible? So I've had patients say, well, I really feel, I'm at my best when I'm hiking in the Sandias. Okay, but you have a full-time job, you have 3 kids. Is that realistic more than once or twice a month? No, it's not really. So thinking of, okay, if it's hiking in the Sandias for that person, maybe that is their still something that they try to create some time and even bring their family into it, so that it's not time away from the family. But what can kind of replicate that is right out of your doorstep, and it's concrete, accessible, possible, I guess is another term here, just given your lifestyle, and each person has unique kind of limitations of their time. And someone might say, gosh, I just have such a busy life as a judge. I don't know how I create time. Well, maybe that person, it's going to be lunch breaks. And if it's going to be lunch breaks, then maybe instead of the number 3 thing I would say is get other people involved with you. So you have not only the mental, physical, spiritual, mind, body, and spirit, but you also have the social benefits. So if that exercise is going to be done on your lunch break, then what other judges or lawyers or other staff might you pull in to start a walking club, for instance, at lunch, or a yoga group at lunch? If it's going to be, no, I think I'll do it right when I get home, then, or sometime, outside of the work, then I'd try to bring in friends, family, neighbors, of course, in a pandemic safe way in this moment. But Norm, how about you? Can I ask you that same question? Like, what would be your first advice to someone who really, as you said, has maybe put so much of their life and time into books and intellect that, physical activity just isn't part of their core kind of makeup at the moment? What would you say to that? Because you're going to give a better, maybe, law perspective than I can.
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is, come on in, the water's fine, so to speak. And the second thing I would say is that I don't think it takes much. Walking is probably, for many people, I think, and I'll ask you this, is walking is one of the most, particularly if you walk with a little bit of vigor, is one of the healthiest activities that ordinary people that aren't, whether they're active or not, can get involved in. And gosh, you said so many things. There are so many things to unpack in your last sentence. I'm going to hit on a few of them. But gosh, I just read a few days ago that while more time is optimal to begin to improve your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, that as little as 11 minutes a day of movement activity can begin to have some positive effects on your life. And in my neighborhood, that's a walk around the block. So there are benefits to be had. You don't have to be a runner that runs marathons. You don't have to be a hiker that hikes the Sandias. You don't have to be a cyclist that does a triathlon to get benefit from this. Just getting outside. And we live in paradise for getting outside. The temperature here and the weather conditions here in New Mexico are so good for, the high desert is so good for getting outside, and it's so restoring to be outside in the fresh air and sunshine. I mean, I think we get 320 some odd days of sunshine a year, and you know, if it's cold in the morning, wait till it warms up a little bit. If it's going to be too hot in the day, go in the morning or wait in the evening till it's cooled off a little bit. So that would be part of it. And I wanted to touch for a moment on one thing you mentioned there, which has been important in my life and being active, and that's connectedness. Gosh, I've made a lot of friends in running, and I feel part of I do trail running mostly, and I feel part of a running community here in Albuquerque. But when I've been out and walking lately or running, there's a whole bunch of people out there that weren't doing this before the pandemic. It's something that still can be done, and we want to talk about safety here in just a moment. But and there's kind of a sense of community about the folks that are out there. You know, you can't see all their faces because their masks are on. You don't know their names, but there seems to be kind of a community of folks out there who are connecting even for a few seconds, because gosh, we're out and doing something lovely. So like I said, come on in, the water's fine. Talk to us a little bit about connectedness. What's the importance of connectedness in physical, mental, and spiritual well-being?
Yeah. By the way, when I pass people on the trails, I wave, and a lot of people see like a younger runner who they size up as only being interested in his or her watch, and they almost assume that I'm not going to be there to be social. My favorite thing to just say is enjoy. Like just one sentence or one word, enjoy what you're doing. I want them to hear it from someone that to them maybe looks like a more serious runner, to know that at the end of it, I'm not taking it anything more as a chance to play and be a kid and run in the leaves and watch the birds. I run disconnected. I don't want any, soundtrack. The soundtrack is nature. The soundtrack is the bosque, the cranes, the sounds of the trees rustling in the sandias on the trails. So Norm, I'm going to answer a little bit with the running medicine journey. So running medicine is finishing its 5th year, and we are officially empowering families and communities to mind, body, and spirit wellness through movement, very, very intentionally, not through running, but running has a very sacred place in Native communities and is incorporated into ceremonies, rites of passage ceremonies, and is really seen as prayerful and much more than how many calories did you burn? What time did you run for the 5K? Runningmedicine.org for anyone that's interested and wants to join. We accept lawyers too. Just kidding. We do. No, it's actually we've met right at the law school. So our main meeting place is right behind the UNM Law School. So I've done everything shy of just running into a law school classroom dressed in runner clothes and saying, "Hey guys, come out and run." But yeah, what I would say is that I think while some of the data we've collected on the improvements in mental, physical, and spiritual health in our program is strong, that the strongest data is actually for a 4th element that we often forget to measure or look at, and we thought it was really important to look at: social connectedness. How has being a part of this group improved your feeling of connection to other people, to your larger Albuquerque community? For Native American residents of Albuquerque, how has it improved your connection to the Native community? Because the big city is a really scary place for someone that's come from a small tribal community of, let's say, 5,000 people, and for whatever reason is plopped into the middle of Albuquerque's metro area. And we've had, so the biggest jump in improvement is actually on the social connectedness. So yeah, I think when you use exercise as a way that connects you more to your neighbors, to maybe a friend that you've had coffee shop kind of level friendship, but you move it into, hey, why don't we, instead of meeting for coffee every Monday morning, why don't we start going for walks every Monday morning? There's I think a different level of connection and creativity when we actually combine, some of our normal conversations. I have work meetings that if possible, I'm going to meet the person and we're going to walk and do a peripatetic, done while moving 30-minute meeting with a very specific agenda, but instead of over a table, we're going to do it while moving. So I think the social connected part of this is really maybe one of the biggest little gifts that you can't measure by a scale or by improvement in your blood pressure or any other variable. And I would just say that during the pandemic, we have to counter that with being socially connected, but not in maybe the same ways, the same type size of groups that we would have done pre-pandemic. But find that person that you'd really like to connect with, and then offer the crazy idea that instead of connecting over coffee or by a Zoom call or however else that you're going to connect by meeting them at the Mike Lamory Trailhead and go for a 45-minute leisurely walk to see how they're doing.
The Solutions Group, the State Bar of New Mexico's EAP provider, offers confidential and free professional counselors to support employees and their direct family members by offering short-term counseling, assessments, and referrals for any life struggle. This includes drug addiction, relationship conflict, anxiety, depression, and grief and loss. Other services include dependent care, crisis assessment and intervention, educational presentations, free well-being webinars, and an online stress assessment tool. Call 505-254-3555 or 1-866-254-3555 and identify with NMJ Lab to schedule an appointment or video visit.
How do you touch on this business? And I think a lot of people are feeling isolated or cut off from family and friends these days, and zoomed out. There's a term that gosh, I hadn't even heard of Zoom a year ago, and now it's just part of my life. How can people get out and connect with other people safely right now? What are the considerations people should make in doing this safely?
Hopefully when this is airing, we're seeing a little more light at the end of the tunnel than when we're recording this, which is the week where the vaccine has finally become a real thing. But I would maybe find one friend, assuming that you don't have a perfect fit in your house, let's say a teenager that needs some exercise anyway, and a great way to connect with them. And so if it's not someone in your house, someone that one or two people, that you kind of form a little bit of a bubble. I think, Norm, the risk of exercising outside, walking, running, biking together, first of all, are much, much lower, not zero. You still want to wear a mask. You still want to keep, at a distance, but really a very low risk for any COVID transmission. And just finding, again, one or two people that you really can kind of consistently run and walk or move, however you're going to move together with. I think that can be great. Some people that may be out of their comfort zone. So another idea would be get a group of 10 people together, and at 8 a.m. they're all have just a fun 10 to 15 minutes on Zoom to talk about their morning exercise. And so they actually do the exercise by themselves. And that group could create, a fun challenge of, hey, let's see if we can get to 50 miles through the month of January, and, have some ways to kind of build community. You can still do the exercise, but if you're not feeling comfortable actually meeting with other people, then use technology to help in kind of the other aspects. You can still make it communal. Have you found any great ideas, Norm, that you would add to that from your pandemic movement?
Well, from the very beginning, I mean, Jane and I are out a lot. We're out 3 or 4 times a week, and from the very beginning, we were able to continue to do that. So we have been hiking and running consistently. Did some backpacking over the summer. A lot of our running is in the open space along the mountains to the east of Albuquerque, and our hiking in the mountains. And it has not been a concern. I mean, we bring our masks, and almost all of the people that we encounter are careful. They're wearing masks and they're respectful. And we get out of the way. Somebody gets off the trail to the side of the trail. You have a nice greeting to one of your fellow exercisers, and we get back on the trail and keep moving. And the few times that we encounter somebody who's not wearing a mask and doesn't seem to be being careful, it's easy to get away. You just step farther off the trail and get quite a ways from them and wait until you get back for a little bit before you get back on the trail. So we felt very comfortable getting out, and same with walking in the neighborhood. We've been doing a lot of that lately, and at least in our area, in the areas that we that we have contact with other people outside, it's not been a concern, and I think it's okay, at least from our perspective. And I'm in an age group that has age group and gender that has higher risk factors. I'm older and I'm a male, so we're being very careful, but that's not one of the things that concerns us. All right, you have, let's see, let me talk about several other things here. One of the things I'd like to talk about with you is we've already talked about the idea that running isn't for everyone, and that there are plenty of other activities that you can engage in. Let's talk a little bit. Can you, I don't want to dwell on this too much, but can you talk about the science behind this? Why movement works, why it works to improve your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual life?
Yeah, that's a big, deep question. In terms of our physical health, of course, there's just the simple idea that we live a much more sedentary life than probably our grandparents and great-grandparents, not hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but 50 years ago. A lot more walking to school, walking to work, and potentially farming, and just natural forms of movement. They didn't need Planet Fitness. They didn't need running races. Movement, for the history of mankind has been just a way of life. And now we've created all these wonderful things like cars and ways to really live a quite sedentary lifestyle. But that's not good for us. That's not what our body ultimately needs. And so from a physical health, burning calories, improving muscle mass, improving bone strength as we get older. Our bones are strengthened by stress on them, which is a good analogy for a lot of life. A bone doesn't get stronger by resting it. It gets stronger by moving on it, by walking on it. Weight-bearing exercise, particularly more so than, say, swimming, is not going to necessarily strengthen bones as much, but swimming is going to strengthen a lot muscular in a way of your back and upper arms that other forms of exercise won't. So from a physical standpoint, honestly, most long-term chronic conditions have exercise and movement as one of the things that can prevent them or can cure them. And even things that people may not, I'll just pick a couple here that I frequently am because I prescribe movement more than any other medicine in my family medicine practice. So heartburn, both directly and indirectly improves when people start exercising. People that are having sleep issues, thinking of our law community that probably takes a lot of stress home with them and maybe even to bed with them. Start walking 30 minutes a day, 3 or 4 times a week, nothing crazy. You'll see your sleep improve. Doc, my energy's not good, low energy. On the surface, why would Dr. Fleg prescribe that person exercise? Well, because when we start moving, we actually, even though it seems counterintuitive, if your starting point is low energy, we actually start to see people report being more energized. And that, I guess, is a way, just a magical way, honestly, that exercise kind of activates us. Doctor, I have a lot of chronic pain. It's fibromyalgia, it's osteoarthritis, it's rheumatoid arthritis, etc. Movement is, in general, really good for chronic pain. It's kind of the move it or lose it phenomenon. And again, on the surface, no, it doesn't. It seems a little counterintuitive that if someone's dealing with chronic pain, sitting in a recliner, that having them starting to get moving isn't the right idea, but it's the exact right idea. Fibromyalgia is a pretty common condition that doctors have really been perplexed, haven't come up with any pills that work as well as movement. The people who have the best controlled pain and the highest level of functioning with fibromyalgia are those who adhere to regular exercise. So, and maybe I'll just quickly say mental health, depression and anxiety. There's a famous study that put one group of people who were depressed older adults onto an antidepressant and a second group onto aerobic exercise. And at 6 months and a year later, when they looked, the group who was doing exercise outperformed in terms of depression and anxiety symptoms, was doing better than the group on pills. So I tell people, take medicine, just don't take it in a pill form. At least.
Yeah, I've read you've said that the stethoscope is only a small part of your medical practice. And you touched on this idea, and it's certainly been true in my life, that the paradox that using energy begets energy. It's an amazing thing. And one thing you didn't mention, but I'm going to mention because it's a particular interest to me as I'm getting up there in years, is the effects of movement on aging.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me the answer.
Oh, okay. I'll give you my take on it now.
Yeah. What do you think your personal benefits that you've seen to counteract aging for you? And then I'll add anything that maybe makes me think.
Well, there are some what I think are more obvious things, and then there's some more subtle things. But let me touch on the obvious first. And that's that I see more people that are my age and even a lot younger than I am, that mobility becomes an issue for them. They're having trouble getting around. If you use the term use it or lose it, it's true, I think throughout your life, but it becomes even more poignantly true as you age, and it may be not only more difficult, but maybe even impossible to gain it back if you lose it. So agility, mobility, agility, coordination. I've found that I do a lot of trail running, and you need to pay attention to the trail. You need to have some agility, some balance. It helps all those things. One of my doctors even suggested one time that it probably helps my cognitive function, and that I'm having to take in all this data all the time about what the trailhead looks like and convert that into action by placing where I place my feet and how I set my balance and so on and so forth. But I think the more subtle thing, and this has been true throughout the years since I took up running, is that, and I'm not sure, I'm going to use some terms here that have some that I think are overused a little bit, but I have more of a sense of agency, a more sense of being empowered, that I have some functional control over my life. I don't delude myself that I'm completely the captain of my ship, but I have, it's a powerful tool that I can call on and that I can use, and it helps me to navigate these waters as I age. And that's a more subtle thing. It gives me more confidence about going into my later years in life. Did I leave anything out?
All of what you just mentioned. It's a good testimonial right there. If you know, if you could put that into a pill form, you would have created something that doesn't exist and won't exist. But no, you just touched on a bunch of different things that each of those, like, let's just pick out one, Norm, the being less confident about your ability to safely get outside and tackle really tough trails. That would have a huge, just that little one would have a huge influence on you as a lawyer, a judge, as any person who's getting older and feeling like they're unable to do things that they really enjoy doing, and they give them, you know, confidence that they still can get out there. And so yeah, I think there's interestingly, I guess, phenomenon that's been described where we actually underestimate what elders can do. And so, like, doctors such as me, maybe not being as good as we need to be at promoting exercise. We say, oh, that this person's in their 80s, you know, I don't want to seem like I'm pushing them too hard, or I don't want them to get injured. But no, we actually should really, for all the reasons you just mentioned, be just as excited to get that person moving as the person that's 35, you know, and needs to lose some weight, or is facing diabetes in the near future if they don't start moving more. You know, when we're older, we have probably some very different benefits than maybe when we were 30 years younger, but very real and very important benefits to moving.
Yeah, and I can assure people that it's been a humbling experience out there at times ever since I started running, and I didn't start running until midlife, that there have always been older runners who have just been tremendous. I've been with runners who've run well into their 80s and toward their 90s. I have a friend who was a volunteer ranger on the La Luz Trail for many years, and Dave Hammock now is in his early 90s, and I think he still gets out and does some of the trail. So age is it's not a barrier. It's a good thing to keep moving. And if running or hiking is not your thing, walk, do something, and you won't regret it. You know, we're coming up on New Year's here, and there's going to be a lot of New Year's resolutions made, and they're well-meaning and they're good resolutions. You know, I'm gonna get in shape this next year. I'm gonna run a 10K this next year, and maybe even I'm gonna run a marathon next year. But as with so many New Year's resolutions, unfortunately, far too many of them soon fade away. There's kind of a hump, and what do we say to folks that make these good resolutions and get a good start, but somehow, oh gosh, the press of professional life or maybe a little setback of some kind just discourages them from continuing? How do we, what encouragement can we give them?
It's a great question. I think our best kind of advice, going a little back to what we said earlier, start with something that might be fun, not a chore. Lawyers, like doctors, don't need anything else that feels like added duty in life. We need things that feel like they're escapes and creative ways to express ourselves. So find something that's fun. Start with a small, very doable goal. I'll tell, for instance, my patients, what you're saying is you want better health in 2021. So don't focus on the scale. Focus on, like, the scale can be part of what's going to tell you that. But for instance, the person gets really motivated and they say, Norm, I want to go out with you and your wife on all these hikes. I want to be your shadow in the month of January. And they get to the end of the month of January, and instead of focusing on, wow, that's more than I've moved in decades, they step on the scale. The scale says, gosh, you only lost 1 pound. And they then forget all of the joy and the connection and the beautiful things they've seen and just the way their body's feeling. And they focus on that, man, I didn't lose enough weight. This has been a failure. I'm going to stop doing it. And interestingly, the gyms already by the 3rd week of January traditionally see a drop in that. New Year's crowd has already started to drop off within a few weeks. So really my biggest thing to kind of try to help people find is something that's sustainable, like, changing your whole diet, or saying, I'm going to exercise 7 days a week. Like if that's sustainable for you, maybe it is your time to make a really big decision. But for a lot of people, just let me try twice a week, fitting in a 30-minute leisurely walk at lunch and eating while I'm at it a salad each day, something that's really actually doable and that you can guarantee that you can be successful. Maybe actually a better approach if you're looking at long-term sustained improvements in health. And I'd also just say we often focus on physical health. It's definitely when you come into a healthcare setting, we measure you up and down and, weight, height, blood pressure, but mental health, spiritual health, cultural health, all the other ways that what you may really need is more time for pleasure reading and more time to, get back to a spiritual practice. That may be, just as important or more important than anything that's of more physical health. I think a lot of, again, the beauty for me in movement is that it can be all of those. It can absolutely be my time to recenter and be grateful and really feel that the hour run for me is spiritual, it's mental, emotional, and it's physical. So that's the perfect win-win when you have something that, again, I think it's usually something you enjoy. If you hate running, you're probably not going to get to a spiritual place. You're not going to get to a place where you see it as stress relief. But if you love running, or you love yoga, or you love hiking in the Sandias, and you can do that as your kind of regular thing, yes, I think the other mental and spiritual kind of benefits will be there without you having to make too much effort.
All right, we're Anthony, we're coming to the end of our time here, and I want to sort of wrap things up a little bit. I'm going to quote you on a couple of things and give you a chance to give us one final thought before we sign off. But let me quote you on a few things, if I may. Dr. Fleg is a writer and a blogger, and he has some amazing stuff on his blog. One of the things I picked up from your blog is you said, and I quote, "This is when we need our movement the most. Keep moving in these months, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary." And you've also said, "We can't control the current. We have to learn to flow with the current." Dr. Anthony Fleg, is there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience of lawyers, judges, and law students before we wrap up?
That's tough when someone's quoting you to the
Didn't mean to put you on the spot there. But.
Well, I think that first thought of, move. Not much of anything in our life right now is easy in the pandemic, and yes, we could sit and continue to maybe make excuses of why we don't move, like my gym closed, for instance. but this is indeed the exact time that we need it the most. And whether you're a person that, as a lawyer, a judge, a law student, has been a mover and maybe has put it aside or has not moved, I'd encourage you to start really simple and find this as a time where, because of the stresses of the pandemic and the lack of some of the stress relief outlets, including travel within our own beautiful state, that trying to get outside, particularly, I think, and move and see the beauty of our land is really an important thing. Go find a trail, for instance, that you've never been on in the Albuquerque or in your local vicinity, that you just want to go explore, and kind of put a little kid's mindset of just curiosity and excitement, and forget about calories and anything that your smartwatch tells you about your exercise. Just have fun with it. Have fun, enjoy, and yeah, the current, in this case, I guess, is the pandemic, and we're not going to change it by stressing all day today or tomorrow about when it's going to be over. But if we just kind of flow with it and let the pandemic be the river, and it's just going to take us to some beautiful places downstream before we can get out of it and go back to normal life. I hope that with that mindset, we come out of all of this as better people, as people that are more loving toward ourselves and toward those around us. And it may just start with lacing up the shoes.
Dr. Fleg, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you today. I know you're being called into COVID-19 service, so along with our thanks for spending time with us today, may I express from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of my colleagues in the bar and on the bench, our deep gratitude for your work and our hopes and our very best wishes that you stay safe and healthy, and that we can meet soon outside and moving during better times. Thank you, Dr. Anthony Fleg.
All my law colleagues, appreciate the work you all are doing similarly on the front lines in many important ways, and look forward to moving together, as Norm says. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. This episode was produced by the State Bar of New Mexico's Member Services Department and Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program. All editing and sound mixing was done by Blue Sky eLearn. Intro music is by Kevin McLeod at Incomtech. The views of the presenters are that of their own and not endorsed by the State Bar of New Mexico. Nothing said in this podcast is legal advice for you.